going to unravel this for us and hopefully arm us with some good tools for discussion and what we make of what could happen to Labour, what will happen to the Tories, and what we do think about Brexit. Who knows? So no small task there, Martin. You get started.
I've got 4 headings, which, knowing how much I tend to talk, should last us to be enough.
I'm chairing, so
yeah,
you're on the clock. So
right. I'm also, as everyone in the room is either, is both a member and or a friend of mine. I'm going to debate, which I wouldn't give to people who I've never seen. It would be unprofessional. But if no one minds, it doesn't matter. I may have debate. Tell it to Tony Bennett.
Yeah, we have to go both in favour.
Okay. What I think I won't do particularly, but I'll do it a little bit, because I know that within the room we have people who 2 years ago took different positions, so it's perhaps worth saying something about why those who do campaign for election, without obviously spending too much time on it, because to some extent the arguments are well worn, but a little bit about it. And also in the context of why it's important to respect the result. The election campaign was predicated upon a number of things. It was predicated upon the idea that the EU is fundamentally a neoliberal institution. Hadn't always been, perhaps, but certainly since the 90s has become increasingly so, that it was not reformable because it was structurally set up in such a way that makes reform incredibly difficult, which would be unique in 28 countries who all essentially go left at the same time and then come together in Brussels and affect some sort of left-wing takeover, which is a position, of course, that left Remainers still take that another Europe is possible, that this is actually an achievable goal. There were other more, of course, specific reasons to do with the refugee crisis, Greece, and so on. But the main reason, or perhaps one of the main reasons, in terms of thinking about Corbynism and the return to some sort of planned economy, was to do with the 4 freedoms of the European Union, which, of course, are set in its treaty level, specifically in its most recent iteration in the Treaty of Lisbon. Now, most of the Brexit campaign supported freedom of movement. Not everyone does, so our Communist Party comrades don't, which isn't to say that they're anti-immigration, they just believe in a managed system. I don't want to get into that because I know that people in the room here do support freedom of movement, so in a way it's not going to discuss that. But in some ways, I think the debate around freedom of movement, in all its tortuous complexity, which of course within the mainstream corporate media is that Remainers and pro-freedom of movement and Brexiters are all against it, we're all anti-immigrants and all the rest of it, has actually missed the most important debate, which is not about the freedom of movement of people, but about the freedom of movement of capital. The major issue with the EU, for me, and for many people who campaign to leave, is that it enshrines the rights of capital to go wherever it wants to do, whatever it wishes to do at any given time. This is not just the EU, of course, it's a process that begins with a big bang in 1986, with the stock market being freed up and capital essentially being able to travel a lot more easily and quickly between countries. But actually, that's the problem, and that's why those of us who talk about a lot about nationalisation get into these debates about the movement of capital. Various people have tried to argue that you can nationalise within the EU. It's not an entirely honest debate always. The reality is what you can do in the EU is use public money to enter a private tender system and therefore nationalise. But within a private tender system, you can't just turn around and go, right, we're not doing it anymore. You're not allowed to all bid. As of now, this is a publicly owned utility. What you can do is go, okay, we'll use public money. We'll nationalise E.ON, not that we could learn French, but you know what I mean. We'll nationalise E.ON and we'll put them up against the various private companies. That's what you can do. The other reason that many of us campaigned to leave was because we said at the time, which has been proven entirely correct, that it would cause a huge crisis in capitalism, a crisis in the middle class, a crisis in the Tory party, would lead almost certainly to a general election in which the left would do very well, all of which happened. Of course, not quite well enough, but well enough, of course, to remove the Tory majority. That reason, in a sense, is almost moot now, because, of course, in a way, we can't kind of just do the same thing again, though we now have a different set of criteria going on in terms of any potential new general election. And there are rumours of one in November. I'm not holding my breath. I think it'll be next year if there is one. I think it'll be after the EU deal inevitably failed, which I think it will do in March. Okay, so that's the sort of background of why we argued what we argued. It was a hard fight at the time, and of course, all voices on the left wishing to discuss this were hugely drowned out within the mainstream campaigns. And let's keep that in mind because we'll come back to what will happen again if we end up having to go through this bloody hell and horror again, basically, which I'm going to come to shortly. Labour's position last summer was to campaign for a people's Brexit. I think we have to be honest and say that Brexit has been inconsistent on Brexit and continues to be so. But the idea of a people's Brexit, the phrase is unfortunately not being used as much now as it was last summer, was really based upon the idea that what you needed to do was concentrate on what you could do after Brexit, not upon the type of Brexit you have. And in some ways, I think this has been one of the another great lies of the last 2 years. This whole idea that there are variations of hard and soft, I think is fundamentally incorrect. Of course, you can have Brexits where you stay tied to this, tied to that. I would certainly argue that any form of Brexit that kept a country in a single market was not Brexit, fundamentally, because the EU is, after all, a trading bloc. You just have a load of politics attached to it. But what there has always been instead to me is what you can do afterwards. And this is, I think, particularly interesting when people get fixated on the particular type of rights and whether or not they're getting enshrined in Parliament now or later and so on and so forth. There's never actually been a need to keep anything from the EU, technically speaking, because the EU laws that we have are enshrined within British law anyway, so it's up to the British Parliament and the British people which ones they keep, in theory at least anyway. So the kind of various obsessions that you certainly see in The Guardian about, but if we have that version, we won't get to keep that right, we won't get to keep that right. It's fundamentally, again, I think, not looking at this in the right way. We could speculate as to why these debates are in such a mess. I certainly would make the case strongly that this has been a very deliberate tactic pushed by Remain and actually the Tory Brexit side in order to keep the debate away from our side of what we might be able to do with Brexit. And I think one of the most interesting and telling articles of this year was the one that was in the Times, June maybe, give or take. The one where they quoted unnamed sources from Brussels admitting that actually they didn't give a monkeys about the Tory rights ideas of cutting tax because they didn't really think they were going to really do all those things that they said in strict regulation that much, because they didn't really see it being in the interest of British capitalism. What they were actually frightened of was the Corbyn government post-Brexit renationalising and going against the neoliberal model. They quote various unnamed sources. They're unnamed, so we have to obviously take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but I do think it's important to keep that in mind. The other thing that the debate's been consistently is fixated upon trade. Free trade, not free trade. Free trade, bizarrely, being linked often to notions of progressive, and there's never, in the history of the political left, have so many people argued for the right to free trade. I mean, I think Marx would be turning in his grave. It didn't say that Marx was anti-free trade, it's just that times when capitalism indulges in free trade or in protectionism is really to do with the interests of capitalism. It's never been to do with the interests of the working class. The issue in the British economy is productivity, I would argue, and manufacturing. Our productivity is terrible. We all know the story, we all hear that the French could have one day off a week and still produce as much stuff as we do. So the issue is to get productivity up. The only way we can get productivity up, I'm not an economist, but as far as I'm aware, is via state national, is via massive investment. And also about working conditions and lots of other things that encourage people to get productivity up. But the real issue has always been around productivity, but you will struggle to find any kind of debate in the corporate media that discusses Brexit in relationship to productivity, and isn't simply fixated on who we can and can't trade with and whether we're going to have to pay a bit more for our tariff salata and so on and so forth. It's never been the issue. The issue for me has always been about productivity and about control over the economy. So how are we doing for time?
All right, you're
10 minutes?
just under 10 minutes.
Right, that's exactly where I should be. I'm just checking the time. So let's move on then to Labour and the second referendum. I think that throughout the summer, many of us, particularly on social media, were saying, and particularly people with large social media followers, John Rees was saying, Kevin Owen was saying it, that post the anti-Semitism smear, it's a second front of attack on the left would be Brexit. And that's, I think, was fairly obvious and easy to read. It was always going to be thus because, of course, it's the area, along with anti-Semitism, for various reasons you won't go into now, but essentially the left has its biggest problem. I'm not saying the left is the problem with anti-Semitism, by the way, I was talking about the way it was presented in the summer. Jeremy Corbyn, of course, has found himself for 2 years now being, at heart, we assume a Brexiter of some description. He's certainly voted against all the EU treaties over the years. However, I'm prepared to at least acknowledge the idea that he may well genuinely have had a bit of a conversion 2 years ago and come to a sort of Yanis Varoufakis remain in reform position. That is possible. It's not what I think, but I think it's possible. What he, of course, did do very clearly was to state that the result must be respected. I think this is a very important thing. Notwithstanding the endless, torturous debates about Russian involvement and Cambridge Analytica and all the other ways that the extreme centre has found ways to deal with the fact that its politics are no longer popular, I think that, what we had 2 years ago was the biggest mandate in British electoral history. And for any party that tends to be on the left to any extent, the idea that you can turn around and say, we didn't like that, can you go and do it again? I think it is a terrible idea and electorally suicidal. We've also, of course, had this feeling need to allude to this, unfortunately. Various opinion polls coming out in some which are trying to suggest that moving to a Remain position would actually win Labour the next election. I had a look at those polls, and Conrad and Counterfire, A.D. Cousins sent through somewhere over on Facebook the unweighted data. And when you looked at the unweighted data before the pollsters fiddled with it, it was already set up to produce the results that it produced to some extent. More of the people asked were Remain voters, and there was a huge percentage Tory voters asked as well. My interest, and I think our interest, ought to be in what will Labour voters, potential Labour voters, ex-Labour voters do if there's a second referendum. Not upon what Tories will do, and not upon what the percentage of Remainiac, extreme Remainers will do, who are probably going to vote for it again. Another issue to mention, and I will reference this because it's not my idea, it's a phrase used by Ruby Barbarossa, the Rebellion article that's now been published in Counterfire, is that if Labour were to move towards a second referendum position, that will become the bread and butter, that was his phrase, of British political discourse on the left for potentially the next 2 years, if we don't force a general election and things do go their full term. Rather than talking about austerity, rather than talking about anti-war movement, all the other things we want to be talking about, we're really talking about bloody Brexit forever and ever and ever. Another thing to mention in terms of any potential second referendum, the extremely dangerous position this will put us in regarding the rising far right. As we know, we have a rising far right coalescing around a number of forces, around, in its extreme street form, of course, the movements around the Football Lads Alliance, its democratic version, and Tommy Robinson, but also rejuvenated UKIP. UKIP went up in the polls for the first time since the referendum when May's Chequers plan was announced, interestingly. So we have a rejuvenated UKIP, which is actually now becoming what many people thought it was 2 years ago, but wasn't really then, a genuine far-right party, under Jerry Batson, becoming increasingly Islamophobic. And part of course, an international alt-right alliance with like Gert Wilders coming over, Steve Bannon, and all these other kind of people, who are usually mobilising around the issue of Brexit, around this issue of betrayal and how the people have been betrayed. What I think is important here is not to make the argument that we can't have another referendum because of far right, just as simple as that, because the far right will be strengthened, because of course we shouldn't base what we do just on what the far right want. It's not about that, it's about what the choices are presented for working class left wing voters. If we have another referendum, a referendum on staying or leaving the EU, I'm not talking about a vote on the deal, which I think is a waste of time, I'll come to that in a minute, but there we are. What people will be presented with in this country is a choice between a Tory Brexit vision, which is increasingly veering to the far right, because Boris Johnson, I think we need to see Boris Johnson's Islamophobic comments recently as being about presenting himself as the mainstream face of the kind of the rather dirty movement that's going behind the UKIP and Robinson and people like that. So we'll have on one side a Tory Brexit and worse Leave position, and then the other side will be an establishment Remain position with the Liberal wing of the Tory party and Chuck-a-Ramuna and all that lot from the Labour Party. So that obviously is a disaster for the left in all sorts of ways. There's simply not space for us in there. We can't obviously, when people do pro-Brexit demos all over the country, we can't be turning up and demonstrating next to Tommy Robinson against them, the way the far right turn put these things down and try and get, demonstrate against them. We can't do that. So it puts us in an incredibly difficult position. And more to the point, it gives people no choice. And the evidence would be from last summer that around a third of UKIP voters from 2015 went to Labour. I think it's fairly safe to say that the vast majority of those will be lost. Because not all of that UKIP vote was right-wing. Often it was a vote of anger, and it was essentially an economic protectionist vote and a bit of a nationalist vote in some ways. But at the end of the day, it's always been a nationalist Labour vote. I can't pretend it doesn't exist, particularly in the north. You know. So these will be the choices that are left for people. I think it's important to get across as well to certain people who do think that they can have their cake and eat it, that you can't have your cake and eat it, and I'll explain why. There was a lad on Saturday when I was at the World Transformed event giving out the paper who was wearing a Love Corbyn, Hate Brexit t-shirt. The reality of it is that any attempt by the left, and certainly that Corbyn is attached to stop Brexit, A, is anti-democratic, B, is an arrest in the development of travel. Which isn't to say that Lexit or Brexit is inherently a left and progressive thing. It's all about what you do after you leave. But the point about it is we, the left, have made ruptures in what looked like the impregnable armour of neoliberal capitalism in the last 2-3 years. And for better or for worse, Brexit is part of that. That was very contested. It has absolutely ruptured the Conservative Party. It's caused huge division. If the Labour Party is seen to be going against that now, and coming back to the kind of the moon of Blairite view of the EU, it will be an absolute disaster for it. Why am I also saying you can't have the cake and eat it? Because despite all these polls that apparently presenting evidence that they could win with the Remain position, the really important statistic, and the one that needs to be quoted, is not the one that 63% of Labour supporters from the 2015 election voted. Hello, you're right, see, I've nearly finished, but anyway, you can get involved in it. Well, it's not the 63% of Labour voters from 2015 votes that Remain. That's not the important statistic. The important statistic is that 60 odd going up to 70 if you exclude Scotland of Labour constituencies voted out. And they're all ones that many of those are places that can go all the way. The reason I'm quoting these stats and saying the first one is less important is because there is a huge concentration of Labour Remain vote in metropolitan areas, particularly in London, but obviously Manchester as well. Most of whom are going to vote Labour anyway, whatever it does. What there is a vote that came, a traditional Labour vote that left it and came back in 2017, and other types of Labour vote all over the country which can very easily be lost. And if you spend time on certain types of forums, I think some of you may be things like Labour Heartlands on Facebook, those forums are particularly interesting because they are predominantly old Labour, northern, small town, often sometimes mining towns, the kind of towns that were totally decimated under Thatcherism, basically. And I do constantly see people saying, I won't vote Labour if they renege on the referendum. So to finish off with Labour, was that my tap so finished? All right, quickly then. We've got a bit of confusion on it at the moment. They're apparently voting tonight. The smart money is that what they'll do is they'll vote to keep the second referendum on the table. However, McDonald's position I thought was excellent this week, where he turned around and said that any vote, if there was a vote, I see no need for a vote on the final deal. I think Parliament can do that and then they can go and renegotiate. But what we really need is a general election. And what Labour needs to do is pushing for a general election. Interestingly enough, Chuka Umunna, who apparently is desperate to stop Brexit and doesn't want the Tories in power because the Tories are pro-Brexit, has come out this week and said, we don't want a general election because my friends in the Tory party don't want a general election, so they won't vote for it. That's his understanding of left politics. It's shaking hands over a glass of port being passed around the table, isn't it, basically? He's part of the establishment. I think Labour's position has become shaky in the last 12 months, as much as anything else, because I think it's part of its blood and its edges that it got once it started positioning itself as a party of government and stopped realising that what it should be doing is presenting itself as a party of insurgency. More positively, I'm trying to hurry up just to finish. I do think from what I've seen from comrades, including Karen's photographs and various things online, that we are seeing a bit more insurgency coming back at conferences this week. I think that's very, very positive. I don't fundamentally think, apart from the fact that Daily Express and Daily Mail will be there, look, it's that big a deal if Labour votes to keep a second referendum on the table, because that's kind of where it is now, because it's never actually come out and said we will not support a second referendum. I don't support a second referendum, I imagine many people in the room don't support a second referendum. But that's not the end of the world. Regarding the idea that people vote on the deal, the reality of this is it was always a contract, I think, in order to get a second referendum, because what's been very, very clear is that when people have talked this week about the fact that what that vote might be, the people who have been pushing it, the Andrew Adonis's, etc., have all said, no, we don't want that, because in reality they want a second referendum, they want to stay in the EU. A vote on a deal, of course, wouldn't have an option to remain. It would be a vote on a deal. It would be, do you accept Chequers or do you not accept Chequers? That would be it. Because the other vote's already happened. There are huge contradictions within the Labour left on this, and more than almost anything else. We also have, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a room full of students that I can get pelted at by bananas or perhaps try and convince of our positions. And there is no doubt that the EU is some sort of liberal socialist utopia is a view that's absolutely entrenched amongst many people who vote Labour. I don't think at the moment we're in a position to change that. I think the only way we're going to change that potentially anyway is by having a general election, get the Corbyn government and actually showing people what can be done outside the EU and making it clear that the fight against the far right and the unpleasant forces that coalesced around Brexit is a fight we'll be having in or out of the EU anyway.
Thank you, Martin. So, I don't know if we did hear the whole discussion, just come in with questions or anything you want to contribute on the subject. Who would like to make a start on an observation or questions?
Can I ask a question? I've got a sort of like a friend's partner who's very, very much for Remain, who works at the university, and he's just like, it's going to be a disaster. You know, it's going to be a disastrous university for all the trade deals and stuff like that. And he's just, if you speak to him, he's just like seething with anger and stuff about it. It's, you know, so I'm wondering what's the best way of responding to him, because he said it's very complicated, all the deals, it'll all go, it'll just be really, really bad.
Do you want me to answer that? Or do you want to make a few more questions?
Discussion first. Yeah, go on, Brian.
I'm sort of related to that. I've got friends who've got like small businesses and they're paying more already for stuff they've got to import and that kind of it's hard to say to them, just put up with it and let your business fall, sort of, you know.
I've got a comment about the people in the Labour Party who believe that the EU is a progressive socialist endeavour and will look after us and all. They can't believe that a Labour manifesto won't be implemented whilst remaining in the EU. And I've given them examples of plans by the EU to open up the whole of the European railways to
False railway.
yeah. So basically, well, the Germans have got a nationalised railway, the French have, but there are plans to privatise it, and these are coming from Brussels. And you know, there are many other examples of other areas that would be doing that.
I think one of the big signals for us is when you see the capitalists arguing amongst themselves. You know, I mean, I've any sympathy actually for, you know, people, particularly under austerity, are looking to all sorts of things to make money, small business enterprises and funding like that. That is a really tough call. But you know, you've got the big corporates actually saying, well, we're just going to, they don't want to leave. They want everything to just stay as it was, thank you. So that's my one, sort of number one alarm. They don't think they can make the same profits and they're forecasting massive stock market crash, which does kind of send that shiver across the whole of society, because nobody wants to see 2008 again and the austerity measures that came in. And I heard something on the news today about the what do you call it, the phrase, you know, how long you live, the figures for how long you stayed the same. Life expectancy last 2 years stayed the same. And it's the lowest in Europe, and it's one of the worst. And the guy, Danny Dunham, no time for on the news, was saying, because everyone's so obsessed with Brexit, they've taken their eye off the effect of austerity and what's happening in everyday lives. And I wonder generally how many people know where their next meal's coming from, homelessness. Those are the issues that are really burning, and Brexit just feels like this media kind of show, if you like. It's almost like watching some kind of show on TV about what's going on.
Endless as well.
Yeah, endless. I don't know where I'm going now, I've lost my track.
Excuse me, so there's someone who I mentioned, as we all did, very known for the kind of, you know, the the long-term interests of the working class. I think my difficulty, I'm a closeted Brexiteer as well, because I work in HE, which is an extremely aggressive environment towards Brexiteers,
But you did vote out.
I did vote out, but it's my difficulty now is that as we head towards potentially a no-deal Brexit, that actually might be to the short-term detriment of exactly those people that I voted in their long-term interests. You know, how my argument kind of stumbles down there. So yeah, you might have to have 2 years of pain, or that group of people might have to have 2 years of pain, but it'll be all right in the long run. You know, Jan tomorrow kind of thing. And I struggle with that.
I apologise, I've realised where I was going with that at the end, which was, I think we've got to keep our fire absolutely determinedly on, you know, the country voted to leave, not by a big margin, I have to say, I hate it when people go, oh, it was overwhelming, it wasn't, but anyway, it voted that way, and it's in the hands of a totally incompetent government, so we need to put it in the hands of a more competent government that's going to sort it out for us. And this is why the initial thing about general election now, that Corbyn and McDonald were saying, you know, is the absolutely the right position, and this stuff about let's vote on something else, no, we don't, you know, that's not the way we want to run our country as socialists. We want to vote in a government that will do what we say, not but have a government that's not doing what we say and then making a bloody mess of it. Anyway, do you want to come back on some of that?
Yeah, I'll actually say something about that for me, just because it just sits in my head a bit, and I'll come back to it. I think it's a really obvious point, isn't it? That last summer, the Tories attempted and failed to make the entire general election about Brexit. Let's also remind ourselves they have the corporate media on their side, obsessively going on about Brexit. I'm sure we all watched the general election that night, and every bloody result was being mapped by people who couldn't map anything and certainly were mathematicians against the electoral boundaries and so on and so forth. It was embarrassing after a while because it was clear that it wasn't working out like that. So as they stood on a mandate of we are the people who will get you Brexit and the Brexit you want, if by next March they haven't done that, I think in any normal political situation, and when perhaps not in one, that is absolutely grounds for a general election. As well as obviously those on the left who want to push that anyway, because we want the Tories out. But I think in terms of, I think you will see, and let's be very clear, I think if we didn't have a radical left leader of the Labour Party, I think that passed. I think you get more calls for that potentially from press, because I think something that's very important to contextualise all of this is that the problem with capitalist class is that its second party, the people who look to look after its interests when the Tories aren't doing very well, is currently being run by socialists. And that hasn't happened for a very, very long time. And if Jeremy Corbyn wasn't running Labour, and ironically we might have a Labour government now, but I'm not saying that in the way that right-wing Labour people do. As in, oh yeah, let's get Andy Bennett and have a Labour government. I'm simply making the point that I think that the interests of the British capitalist class would have moved over to Labour much more naturally if it wasn't frightened about what the left was going to do in power. Because in the background of all of these bloody debates on Brexit is what is the thing that unites all of it? Remain and leave within the corporate media and the mainstream, not having a Corbyn government, keeping the left out of power. The right Labour want to do that by changing its position on Brexit, by suggesting that everyone on the left is an anti-Semite, by suggesting a million other things. The Tories want to do it the way that the Tories always want to do it. So I think that's an important thing to remember, that we see this constant balancing act for the interests of the establishment capital that wants to remain in the EU. How does it best get what it wants? Will it trust Labour? What does it think Jeremy Corbyn might do in power? But can it trust the Tories? So essentially, it's a difficult position. If we come back to the various comments and questions, I'll go through them all in order, if I may. Well, two people in different ways have mentioned universities, and of course I work in one as well. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Universities are horrendous. It's just incredibly common now to get emails making stupid jokes about Brexit, to be meetings where people make stupid jokes about Brexit, because of course they totally assume that everyone is a Remainer. Excuse me. I have to be honest, as someone who's worked at HE for 18 years, I couldn't give a monkeys about whether universities are going to find it more and more difficult to get bloody research grants from the EU. I'm sorry, this is not important in the great scheme of things. What I would much more be interested in doing is getting a Labour government that could actually start to socialise universities and get them publicly funded. That's the issue, not the pink bloody research grants. And at the end of the day, the Erasmus scheme and all those kinds of things that we have, where students move about, it won't be that difficult to fix that, to set up a deal whereby people can essentially do these things. In terms of trade deals and the general comments you made, I think Coming back to small, that's you, wasn't it? And then coming back to small businesses, the two together. I mean, it's very easy in the sense I don't want to go and say, well, obviously a small businessman would think that because it's in the interest of the capitalist class. I don't really want to be sort of vulgar Marxist about it, because I kind of get that small businessman and woman doesn't necessarily mean what it once did. I get that. This is why there is something to be said, of course, for trying to get the deal. What I do not have the details or the information regarding what a particular given commodity will cost once we're out of Europe if there is no deal. I don't know that at the end of the day. So really, the way I'm slightly hedging this one, I've got to be honest with you, part of that would be, well, this is not the most important thing. While I understand that individual people could be hurt from it. And perhaps from that we can also go on to what this potentially can do for the people at the bottom and Alan's point, because it's just because it links to that. We'll come back to the other ones from there. I think that the general debates around the stock market, around the economy, are, I think, predicated upon an illusion, which these things always are, because they're always based on the idea there is such a thing as the national interest. We've had 30 odd years of versions of trickle-down economy, haven't we, really, since the Thatcher period, which basically have been telling us for years that it's in our interest for people richer than us to earn more and more money because more of it will trickle down to us. So when people turn around and say, I don't mean you question obviously, but when people turn around and say, well, what about the people at the bottom, they'll get hit worse? I think there's a number of answers. I'm not, in terms of certain parts of the country that voted out that are totally decimated, I'm not really sure if we can necessarily get that much worse anyway. But the point about it is that what we want is to have a left-wing government where we fight for socialism, where we fight for those people's interests. And so what you come back to is what's the best way for fighting for those people's interests, which isn't to say, of course, that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, there couldn't be a major problems caused for all sorts of people. Of course there could. I mean, my belief is there won't be a no-deal Brexit. I think there will be some sort of deal. Just because I think capitalism does what capitalism does, and I don't think that the interests of rich and European capital will divorce themselves to that extent, whether we would like them to or not. I, on a personal level, would not have that much of a big problem with not having a deal, because I never thought the deal was an issue. The deal was a free trade deal, so what? I mean, I think there's other ways to free trade. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I think, the whole debates that go on in this, particularly the Guardian, around, the interests of the country, the stock market, those sort of things, are all really, the interests of shareholders, are all really based upon the idea that we're all in it together, and we're not all in it together. And austerity has made that incredibly clear, I think, even if people weren't aware of it beforehand. So how, therefore, do we best push forward the interests of the working class? Well, again, we get back to the end, we get back to the importance of getting a Corbyn government. So in some ways, as being a pragmatist, let's say, I know there are people who agree with vote to remain. Let's say we all prioritise getting a Corbyn government. So it's about what do we do in order to make that happen. The thing, of course, for many people, is it's not about getting a Corbyn government, it's about staying in the EU. For some people, that's because they think the EU is a socialist utopia. For other people, it's because they actually, Chuck Ramon, if we had him here, and twisted his arm on his back. And various other people, the reason they want to be in the EU is because the EU prevents people like Jeremy Corbyn doing what they want to do in his political party, which he sees as being a liberal social democrat party, essentially. So of course they want to be in the EU. They can turn around and say they want to be in the EU because of workers' rights, etc., etc. But you know what? Spend a half an hour on Wikipedia. You don't need to go and read loads of books. You can go and look at the trade union and working class history and find out who got those rights. And it wasn't the EU. They weren't given to us by the EU. They were won by the working class. And they were in France and in Germany and Austria and all the other countries where people were.
You just find out so we have some more questions.
Sorry. There was Labour Progressive EU Manifesto. Yeah, you're absolutely right, David. I mean, about what can and can't be done. It's a very difficult debate. And of course, last summer, the various People's Vote people put out this massive, quite big pamphlet explaining why those who were on the left were all wrong about it and how you could do all of these things. If you pick it apart, it's a really disingenuous piece. And what I would recommend people reading, and if you, in terms of arguing with anyone you want to argue with, I think the most detailed piece on this is still manageable. Recently was one by Alex Gordon from the RMC and Jonathan White, who are Communist Party comrades, who wrote a very good Morning Star piece, which also got put out as a blog. But I think if you Google Alex Gordon Morning Star and Brexit, you'll see it, which went into a lot of detail about this and made it very, very clear that no one had actually said that you couldn't nationalise in the EU as it was completely illegal if you tried to do it in terms of the gunboats, but that the entire structure is set up to make it incredibly difficult and then you can't do a true version of nationalisation. I think that's the way to approach that. Stop talking.
through. Has that helped? Confused? Set more thoughts going?
I was just thinking something I heard on the radio this morning. There were some people on about, this was not so much Brexit, but it was linked. Do you know, like it's linked, it's saying we can only have skilled workers coming in, you know, into, you know, rather than just everyone coming in. So it's all, I think they're all linked to Brexit, and I was thinking about these issues because of that. And someone was saying, sort of for their business, you know, like sort of, you know, people, I think people who pick fruit and veg, they're still allowed, aren't they? But they were saying for the care workers, that most of the care workers tend to be like Eastern European and, you know, so them workers, they're saying there's going to be a real crisis because all those, there's not going to be enough workers for that. So someone said, but why can't we just train people here? And they were fudging it. And then, you know, kind of around, oh, but there's just not enough and they're not trained yet and stuff. And I was thinking it's because they want to pay them, you know, just the lowest of the low that they can get away with, whereas English workers don't necessarily want that. And they want the sort of like, I suppose, things to carry on with as it is, with kind of just staying in the EU and we've just got this free flow of workers. So it's not about, you know, we're looking at, like Corbyn will be looking at a workers kind of Brexit, you know, that would mean that we train, pay people decent pay rather than just, you know, getting foreign workers to exploit them. And it was really interesting, so that's what it is. It's all about that capital, isn't it, making money. And they were masking it, this is going to be this care crisis once there's Brexit, you know, kind of scaring people.
The whole point is they're not paying for people.
No, they're just not paying and training people. And there's plenty of workers in the UK who could do those jobs. You know. So I thought that was quite interesting in relation to this, that actually we need to be getting more of what people's Brexit could bring, you know, if we could, you know, sort of do decent jobs here, rather than just, I don't mean, you know, I'm happy for workers to come and work here, but we need to be fair to the workers here too, don't we? So we can get that kind of...
A great example of that is, if you go back to the late 70s, early 80s, every industry had an apprentice structure to it. The car industry, shipbuilding, coal industry, all these hospitals, teaching, all had this low-level teaching system, and that disappeared. It's all gone. All the technical colleges and polytechnics in universities. And you look at all the towns that have these places which have disappeared. And they just now import people in to fill positions which have no problem people coming in for the positions, but they've stopped educating people to do them. And the educators are now pushing for more middle-class jobs. Everyone wants to be a teacher or computer programmer or what have you. What you call a productivity base is not being educated.
It doesn't need to be under a system we've had for the last 25 years because we've not actually had a system for many years. It's been based upon spending in Britain as a way of moving the economy forward has not been based upon wages for donkey's years. It's been based on debt because working class wages froze donkey's years ago and stopped going down. Once capital started, the labour started rebalancing in favour of capitalism, and that's in the 70s really, in the 80s. And these things went on and more. And what replaced it, of course, was debt and easy access to spending in order to keep the economy afloat.
So I don't see why a Brexit couldn't have freedom of movement. I mean, there's nothing to say you can't have freedom of movement. This is playing to the right. We said people wanted to leave, people wanted to cut down on immigration. And I just bloody could cry when I heard this morning, what the Tories have said is everybody after Brexit, everyone will be treated the same. So there'll be no priority for EU citizens. And I'm thinking, so this is the Windrush, treated like Windrush, treated like all those doctors that when they hit the cap, we've got all these qualified doctors that have got visas and made family arrangements to come to this country and then just suddenly couldn't come because we'd hit the number of doctors that we were allowed to have from these countries. The current immigration system doesn't work, so no way do we want it rolled out to involve all the EU countries. I also disagreed with what you said about a Labour government, we might have a Labour government if it wasn't for Corbyn, because it isn't up to the ruling class. The ruling class doesn't decide when we get an election or not, to be honest. You know, you think about Heath and the government, you know, it's turmoil from underneath that brings about general elections when a country becomes virtually ungovernable because people are so pissed off. And it may, you know, just because the right go, oh, well, you know, was, what's his name, you know, was Tony Blair all right? Oh, yeah, we'll have a general election. They fucking hate Labour. I mean, it's worse that it's Jeremy Corbyn, but there's no way, I don't think they would go, oh, it's all right, we've got a right-wing leader who won't miss the bud, we'll pave the way for him to come in. No, they want to get Theresa May on board. They probably love Boris Johnson, who's a bit of a risk, maybe Rees-Mogg. You know, they would love, that's what they want. And that's why we have to fight for a general election, because, you know, they're not going to offer it to us on a plate in any shape or form, whether it was Corbyn or anyone else, I think.
I'll come back on that. I agree with some of what you say. I don't agree about Rees-Mogg and Johnson, because I think fundamentally it's just the British ruling class that stay in the EU and not leave it. So I don't think they do support those people. What I was getting at, and I don't think I made my point really well, I don't remotely think Labour would have won a general election last summer if it hadn't had Jeremy Corbyn. I think it would have done worse, so to be clear about that. What I was getting at would be that if Labour was not run by a figure of the left, I was simply saying that to the British ruling class would have, and if it took a Remain position, would potentially have basically put its cards on its table. Just because historically, Labour's often used an old phrase, Labour's the second party of capital. Labour's currently not the second party of capital because it has a leader who is an anti-capitalist to some degree. That's all I simply meant, was that the ruling class is totally in a bind, because its historic party is in a total mess and going in two directions, and the party it turns to when its historic party is not doing very well is currently led by a socialist. That's all I meant. So perhaps I didn't put across quite what I meant. I wasn't saying that we would be more like I absolutely agree with you about where elections come from and where change comes from. Obviously, you know that, but about from below. All I was simply making the point was that I think that what we wouldn't have had would be, of course, the endless smears, the Czech spies, the anti-Semitism, and all of that kind of stuff. If Labour was led by a moderate, and was pro-EU, British ruling class would have put its cards behind the plane. That's my
so don't see the argument between the chair and the speaker. Would anyone else like to join in?
But that wouldn't be in our interest, that Labour Party, so, you know, I wouldn't support that Labour Party.
Sorry, Dave.
Sorry, I was just saying, you know, when you say the moderate, you mean like someone kind of like, you mean someone not as far to the left as, say, Corbyn, for example? Like, would you say, for instance, who was going to say?
Anyone would be fine for them. All I was sort of making a point, and it's got slightly lost somewhere along the way, was that one of the major problems the British ruling class has is that the party it turns to when the Tories are in crisis it can't turn to because it's led by people who are to some degree either socialist and or Marxist. That's what I'm essentially saying.
Maybe a right-wing Labour.
Yeah. I don't think it would really matter who was leading it.
Dave and then Brian, go on ahead.
I was just going to make a comment about what you're saying is that it doesn't matter who wins the election, the government always gets back in.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the ruling class likes to think, yeah. But it's not in that position. That's what I'm saying.
Brian.
Well, when it comes to the crunch, and it's about no confidence to trigger a general election, are the Labour right going to block it? Are they going to, what's going to happen? You know, how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to get an election?
I mean, the Tories might call an election.
Let's just have a little bit of a, just in case, because sometimes people just like to think before they speak, not that you don't, perhaps.
No, I don't.
Just leaving a space for Laura or everybody else. Come in, Sally. Any other thoughts? Good.
On Brian's question there, I think the grassroots of the Labour Party and branches are far, far more with Corbyn than a lot of their own MPs.
It's surely not the best chance of getting a general election is if the Tories call themselves without need for a vote of confidence, which they can do, can't they, still?
You'll have to get 2/3 vote in Parliament.
She can call the general election, well, she did, didn't she?
Yeah. comments about their chances of success in it. And they're all over the place. I started feeling sympathetic for Theresa May, to be honest, she's taken a lot.
Can I come in on that very quickly, just because something happened today that might be interesting?
Okay, quickly then.
All right. Very odd article today by Polly Toynbee. Anyone seen Polly Toynbee's column where she said how great John McDonnell was?
Yeah.
Very strange.
She still had a dig, though.
She did. She had a dig at Corbyn. But what I think is interesting now is I think the only thing that can be learned from this in my book is that she thinks, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying she's right, that there is going to be a snap election, and that she's positioning herself on the correct side of things this time, having made such a monumental mess of it last summer. So I can't see any other reason for that ludicrous and bizarre article, particularly in terms of McDonnell. You know, and the language she's using as well, it's kind of like, you know, it's almost like fangirl. She's like, yeah, it's great, you know, stuff and so. And I do think the only... So, which kind of brings us back to your point, doesn't it, about, well, what will happen with, what will the Labour right do? I mean, I think we're all in a way avoiding... We all talk about this on the left in private, but we know what's holding meetings about it. Of course, the thing which is, you know, what actually will happen when a Corbyn government gets in with the fact that he has running a party that doesn't agree with most of the large percent of his policies. And particularly in the context of the fact that we've had a massive setback this week with the democracy review, the conference.
One of the reasons I was happy to vote out was because I just thought it would be so calamitous for the Tories. They would have to call a general election and Labour would get in. I completely underestimated people in Labour who didn't want a Labour government. They would rather have a Tory government and stamp Corbyn in the back. I mean, that was...
And didn't put money into areas that
they tore themselves apart. They could have walked in after Cameron, and who knows to what extent that group is prepared to do that again. So, who knows?
I just put something today on the progress. Someone went into the progress fringe about a conference, and they were just full of bitterness. They didn't really have any ideas. They were just full of bitterness, and it does make me think that we would be willing, like I said, to start in the back to me, even now again as well. Well, I've been doing anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But that's the two things are. Then you just embroil yourself in the framework and business of the Labour Party, so these people can't succeed in the bureaucracy to do that, which we've seen as just sucking the life out of some of our very good friends who are trying to do this. Or we just have to make it so popular to be on Corbyn's side, which is, I think, kind of where we are at the minute. It's so popular amongst the membership and generally that base that those snakes have decided they're going to keep quiet, most of them. What do you think?
I think that my feeling is what's most likely, potentially, is that we all know what they've been doing for ages, but I think that the most likely thing is that in the event of a Labour government, I think they will campaign as best they can within the limits of how they campaign for what they want and get that Labour government. I do think they'll do that. Because I think they want power. So I think what's most likely, if we assume that the next Labour government will not have a big majority, may not even have a majority, might have to already go to coalition with the SNP or potentially whatever the Dems are and so on. But what I could see happening would be essentially an independent bloc formed on the right of the Labour Party, which at that point turns around, let's say it's 25 of them, just for argument's sake, and says, right, yeah, we're still Labour MPs, but we're resigning the whip, so therefore if you want to keep this government going, you need to listen to what we want, and that's a power play, isn't it? That's a far more sensible move than just stabbing in the back, making sure that Tories win the next election. I don't think, despite the talk of it, there is really any mileage in the new centre party. The particular kind of set of circumstances that made that, it wasn't even successful, was it, but made it on the table in the early 80s, I don't think are here now. I don't see that happening. I think it's important to remind ourselves in terms of division that while Labour got its best election results since 97 in terms of votes, the Tories got their best since 92. The highest Tory vote since John Major in 1992 the last general election. I think we need to remember that. It's just the way it got spread. What's collapsed is the centre. The Lib Dems and of course the SNP lost votes to Tories won seats in Scotland for the first time in donkey's years, new seats that is. So I think, we have returned to the time of division, haven't we? It is kind of like the 70s again in some ways, And I think that, so I'm not sure that Labour, I do think Labour can and will win the snap election if it comes, or if there's one next March, particularly if it's next March, because it's better for the Labour Party. So if it's forced on a Tory, because the country, as it were, I don't really like that phrase, but we use it here, actually going to go, you know what, you stood on a Brexit mandate, you fucked it up, you haven't got us a deal, we need a general election. And I think that could happen. And I think in that situation, I do think Labour can win. It won't win a big majority. It might be a majority of 5, majority of 10, instead of 10.
And I think that's the thing about the people's vote or the second referendum is, what on earth makes you think Theresa May can pull anything out of the bag? In what way would you trust her and her cabinet now to be able to do anything? You know, to just face that fact of a general election, because otherwise you're just pissing around, basically, in my view.
Well, normal governments effectively cease to function because of Brexit, hasn't it? And all they're doing occasionally is bringing forward things that are a little bit more liberal than they were in response to Labour policies at the moment. You know.
Yes, we'll just take another round of
Yeah.
points and then we'll sum up. That's all right.
And I think what I'm talking about will the Labour membership or MPs stop the success in the next general election. I mean, I guess once it's called, it's down to the voters, not the members, and the voter base is different views from both the membership and the parliamentary party. But what I liked about John McConnell's two kind of big themes in his speech, so they're both going to appeal to a traditional Labour base, but also potentially to other parts of the electorate that we might otherwise lose to Remain or lose to, and the penetration of those messages in the media yesterday or the day before seemed quite considerable, and perhaps that's because it's conflicted, and perhaps they won't have the same success when a campaign is actually happening because there'll be a move against them. But I think there was, that those were two policies which have really kind of hit home.
What would you think?
I think in the atmosphere of a general election, the Labour leadership would be better positioned to take on a far-right resurgence in UKIP, because that would force UKIP to come up with some policies, which a lot of people who voted UKIP, if you like to point out, switched to Labour in the last election because they were attracted to the manifesto, because that's the sort of thing they want. They want to see more investment in schools and hospitals and local businesses and all the different things in local authorities. And you could not imagine anybody in UKIP coming forward with the progressive policies on those areas.
No, and most importantly, the EU. So if Labour seems to want to lead in the EU, then it'll be all right.
Yes.
It's basically that.
I remember an argument negotiating with some people, and they agreed that they were staunch UKIP with the anti-immigration, but they really agreed with Labour. Political manifesto.
More points, or do we feel sufficiently kind of confident in what people might say to us tomorrow after the Labour conference vote to take? All options are on the table, but
I just think I don't understand why I'm not, unless I'm seeing it wrong, but if you go into a negotiating position with the EU, you don't want us to leave, but publicly saying whatever deal we come up with, we'll have a vote. It's just a really crap negotiating position. The incentive for them is just to piss about, play hardball. If it's on the table that we're going to put that to the public vote, and if the deal's not attractive, we might stay. I just think that's the worst negotiating. I don't understand why you go into a negotiating position, into a negotiating situation with that position, that whatever you come up with, we're going to put it to a popular vote, and we might stay if it's not good enough. What? The weakest negotiating position, I don't know.
Because they don't want to leave.
I think so.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were coming. Anybody else? Comment on what's on the set. Okay, a couple of minutes to round up then.
What Nick was just saying reminded me of the word that gets used a lot, which of course is the EU's tendency to want never-endings, as people call them. It has history here, of course. It made Ireland vote twice on Lisbon and so on and so forth. It's very clear that's what they want, and they've been making, and this is why they're so intractable. I think it's important as well to be able to say from the left that the EU has behaved really badly during most of this negotiation. It's behaved exactly as we would expect it to. It's been intractable. And of course it would do, because it's a classic thing that we had in the Cold War of a threat of a good example. It doesn't want a major player leaving the EU. It certainly doesn't want a major player leaving the EU with an unstable government that will probably be toppled for a left-wing government. So that's something. In terms of within the Labour Party, I do think it's important, despite the fact you might not believe this unless some of the stuff that we read, is that momentum and the young Corbynite vote that's been energised in the last couple of years and is in the Labour Party will vote Corbyn if we leave the EU, and his Labour campaign to leave the EU, it will do. It's important not to get misled by what comes out of momentum. The group of people in momentum who are banging on about second referenda are led by Michael Chesham, a very sort of lunatic ex-trots who are in the Association for Workers' Liberty. They're one of the most peculiar left-wing groups in the world who, as you may well know or may not know, are massively pro-EU and massively pro-Israel. And they're a very strange group. Many of them have now mutated into momentum and have a disproportionately large media influence compared to their actual influence, I think, in the rank and file. It's very easy to think that things are going, there's this whole block. I think in reality, if we have a general election in November or next March, and Corbyn says what he said today, and McDonald said what he said, which is, we are leaving the EU, we'll get us a good deal. In reality, I don't think we'll get a good deal, but that's another story for another meeting. And we will have a people's Brexit, then those people will campaign and vote Labour. So there's no problem there. The people who won't vote Labour, the people Dave was just describing, who he was talking to on the doorstep, if they renege on Brexit, and many other people. Very quickly, coming back to a couple of points we didn't quite finish on with about free movement. It's important to remember, I think, that the EU does not mandate free movement of people, it mandates free movement of labour. It's not the same thing. Of course, in reality, it can often mean the same thing, but it was not set up in order to provide a borderless world where we can push, all socialists at heart support. There may be debates about whether it's utopian or realistic amongst some sections of the radical left, but everyone supports it. It wasn't set up for that, it was entirely set up in order to be able to turn around for any capitalist organisation to say the kind of thing that was totally not allowed when we were young in the world of closed shops and when the unions were strong to say, we're not having that kind of workers because they want this and that, we're having that lot over there, we can pay half the amount of money to. That's why it was set up. In terms of fruit pickers and such like, let's be perfectly honest, you read the scandals that comes out about the way some of these people are treated, it's really only a step or two up from indentured labour to some extent in the world of fruit picking. So of course people don't want to do it. Because why would you? Because essentially it's living in a caravan in the middle of nowhere, working 12 hours a day, often not getting, and all sorts of gang masters, this whole world of kind of appalling, It's coming back to local workers and all the rest of it. I think another issue that I was mentioned in one of the debates I've written about in a couple of my pieces is about the notion of local procurement. It's another thing that isn't really allowed within the EU. So procurement based on local needs. Currently, if you live in, so you two, you live in Bury, if you all campaign and want to get together and say, we want that building there to be turned into this because that's what the community needs. A company from Belgium or wherever can go, well, we don't give a shit, we want to turn it to this and we've got more money than we can outbid you. That's what we need to get rid of as well. And it's another way that capital moves around. It's about procurement in the interests of people and the interests of communities, which we've totally lost for many, many years. We did have in small ways, I think, back in the 70s to some extent. But, that's something we absolutely need to get back to. What does a community need? And to base things on that, not based on whether someone can outbid someone for £2.5 million rather than £2 million for a job and all the rest of it. Maybe it's worth ending with a comment about after our general election, we're all hoping is around the corner. I think one of the major reasons, and I said this in my talk, to try and just stay firm on this, and for Corbyn and McDonald to stay firm on it, and the people who support them in the Labour Party, is, as I said, to stop this discussion, actually, just so that I'm not sitting here doing this and we're not all listening, that we're not spending the next 3 years discussing the bloody European Union. There's various ways we can do that. I think, it's very difficult to have. We simply didn't get a voice in the last referendum. If we go into another referendum with the Labour Party backing Remain, let's be honest, we'll have even less of a voice than we had last time. Because last time, the Labour Party backed Remain, but a lot of us thought, but those guys really would have voted out. We can't for tactical reasons at the moment. We had individual people in the Labour Party, of course, backing Leave, some for rather right-wing reasons, some for decent, good left-wing reasons like Dennis Skinner. But I think, there'll be even less of a voice of that, outside of, those of us in radical left groups backing Brexit leave. I do know, by the way, there is discussion about reviving the Brexit campaign. At the
I'm
moment.
trying not to roll my eyes
Yeah.
out loud at that.
Between senior members of the Communist Party and senior members of Counterfire, I'll leave it at that for now. But,
Can we end on something more exciting?
okay, pubs down the street. I think, the most important thing is fundamentally to get a general election. Let's end with that. It's to get a Corbyn government, and this is a huge distraction. Of course we know it isn't for very many people. They think it's the be-all and end-all. And certainly if you spend your time in university in HE type spaces, there is a whole idea that essentially a dominant narrative has been believed there. It's a simple, those people have been so ideologically kind of filled with nonsense about this. It's not true. But this is by definition a vote to isolationism. It's a right-wing position. It's this, it's that. It's none of those things. For me, as an absolute, as a kind of devout anti-European, anti-EU person, my hope was always not actually just to get out of the EU, but to put a fatal nail in its coffin and destroy it, basically. And of course replace it with true internationalist organisations across the whole world, and indeed across Europe. The EU, I think, is an appalling thing, and the sooner we've gone, the better, so I'm going to end with that. All right.